It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Monday, October 17th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this wonderful Monday? We've got current news from around the world, the Sunday Message Word Study, and of course, 2G Talks with Eddie Kwan from San Francisco. All right, everyone, how was your weekend? Yes, I'm sure there was a lot of things that you did, but most importantly, I'm sure you guys were able to enjoy and receive grace and fire from the Sunday message, give glory to God, and now it's Monday again, and we can restart another amazing week together with the Lord. This week's message, God is my strength and power. What a powerful, that was such a good message for me. That intro about like the sun, moon, and stars all have strength. Just the intro was so good. But I think the best part of the message was going back into the explanation about Jesus and the Holy Son. And I think a lot of people are confused about that genuinely. And it's not because, the way that Sunday explained it was perfect. And I'm going to be honest with you. I rewound the Sunday message and I listened to it like 5, 6, 7, 8 times just to get oh, what do they mean here? Oh, what does it mean here? What does it mean here? And it took me a while to go over it over and over and over it again. But there's really good key points in there that I thought that we should hear during today's word study. Yeah, that is like the key thing that's confusing a ton of people. So definitely, I'm going to get on that with today's word study. That might be the most important thing I'll talk about today. Okay, so God's my strength and power. For me, interesting weekend. Great time, super relaxed. Went to play board games with some of the guys. Went to go play volleyball, eating really, really good food, meeting good friends. And then, of course, to top everything off, Sunday message was deep, right? It was so good. So I was really, really happy about that. And now that I'm leaving soon. It's like I'm leaving not this Thursday, but the Thursday after. Of course, it takes 2 days, because of the time zone difference and stuff. But yeah, I'm leaving in how many days is that then? 11 days. I have 11 days before I leave, right? So I'm pretty excited, but because it's so close for me leaving Vancouver, because I've been at home for 10 and a half months, right? Almost 11 months now. Almost 11 months. It'll be a week when it's 11 months. But it's pretty crazy because I'm starting to think about the things I'm going to miss. And I'm going to tell you this. This is the number one thing I'm going to miss more than anything else is my parents. I'm just dead serious. I spend most of my time with them. It comes to my mom's cooking. And you guys have seen my Instagram. She cooks. Even though she's 70, she cooks, right? There's nothing better than her cooking. A lot of times I'd rather just go home and eat my mom's cooking than go out to eat, right? And it's my mom's cooking and the way she takes care of me. But, overall, in the end, I realized that the summary of what I'm going to miss is this unwavering love for me. I think that's what it is. And I think this is why having family is such a huge thing that you cannot miss out on. You don't want to burn bridges, when you come to province and everything else. It's unwavering. And I think this is something that people really want. And that's what I miss. With friends and such, the love is not going to be unwavering. And honestly, I don't expect my friends to have unwavering love. I think that's an unfair expectation to have on friendship because friendship changes with time. If think about it. If all my friends get married and I don't, then it's going to be different. We're going to be thinking about things in a different way, right? They're going to have kids, and having kids is different than someone who's single and doesn't have kids. It's just totally different. Religion changes, interests change. All these changes, all these things about friendships change with time. People change. I change. They change, right? And I think it's an unfair expectation. I was thinking to myself, you can't expect friendships to be like that, right? Like your family. That's impossible, right? And I don't expect it. But I realized, wow, the reason why your family is such an amazing unit of unity is because it's just bound in love. It is so about love that even my mom right now, we're just talking today. She's like, oh, you have less than 2 weeks. oh, what am I going to do when you're gone? And she just starts saying stuff like, oh, I'm going to even miss doing your laundry, right? And I'm like going, like in your head, you're kind of going like, oh, come on, right? Like I can do my own laundry, whatever it is, right? But it's just kind of the expression of love, right? She's going to miss me just being in the house. She's going to be bored. Of course, she's going to see me in 2 months because she's coming to visit me in Malaysia. But, she has, it's like she cannot, is not like being a mother is not even a job. It's like, it's a thing that you are for the rest of your life, right? And when I think about my mom and how much she just totally loves me and my brother, of course she loves me more. I'm just adding that, right? And even though it's been like 10, 11 months, she's like automatic mother mode. She loves it. Like that's the thing. It's almost like that's what she was born to do. And I think that's one of the most, powerful things that God has installed in our hearts is this amazing love that parents have towards their children. Now, children may not have it in the beginning, but later on they'll realize how great and how amazing their parents are. So I'm just like, I was like, do I really just miss my mom's cooking? No, because that would be kind of sad if it's just the cooking. Because if I just, because that means that as long as I find someone who can cook better or good as her or better than her, then I'm not going to miss my mom. But that's not true either. And in the end, you realize it always boils down to that same thing, which is love. It's always about love. So, yeah, I'm starting to already miss like oh my gosh, I'm not going to see my mom. I'm not going to see my dad, my brother, my cousins, stuff like that too. So that's something that I'm like starting to miss right now because I'm not going to be doing that anymore. And I'm going to tell you this one last thing that I thought about too is when it comes down to like transitions and things that happen in your life, it's very, very easy for us to be nostalgic and look back at the things that we're going to miss. And one thing that I don't want to happen is these things I'm going to miss, I don't want that to hold me back from moving forward, right? It's almost like, say, marriage. If you're going to get married, if you start looking back and just being, but oh, I'd be so free and I'd be able to do this. I don't have to ask anyone for this. Like, there's so many things that you could be missing about a single life. But if that is the reason that stops you from getting married, then that's going to be something like, wait a second, but you're totally missing out on all the amazing things that happens when you get married, right? So I thought to myself, I was like, yeah, in every transition we have in life, yeah, there's gonna be things that you can't do anymore or things that is not the same as it was in the past. But what we have to realize is, yeah, that when life moves on, right, and stages of life turn up, it's not like you're gonna miss high school and then want to go back to high school. No, you got to back at the things, the amazing things that happen in our life, and then we push forward. And that's kind of what I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, life is, I'm going to be moving to, not moving, but I'll be going to Malaysia and then who knows, maybe Korea. And then after that, come back to Canada for a little bit and then move to another city, like for more like stability, like staying there for a long time. So I'm just kind of like, oh, what's the best way for me to do this? And I really thought to myself, you know what? Be thankful for all the things that have happened. It's kind of like what Sunseem said this week, and Sunseem said in this week's message. Look back at all the amazing things God has done for you. Be thankful and know that God is there with you and move forward, right? And I think that's something that I really need to kind of change and flip my mind in. Not like, oh, I miss so much, I can't leave. It's more of, wow, this is so amazing. God has blessed me. I have an amazing family. And then I move forward, right? And, in the end, my parents are not going to be there for me all the time. Eventually, just like everyone else, they're going to pass away, just like me. And if it's going to be the exact same thing with generations that pass from generation to generation, from parent to child, parent to child, parent to child. And that's just kind of what you call like a fact of life more than anything else, right? That's a fact of life. Either way. So yeah, my thoughts went deep this weekend when I was thinking about like how much I miss my parents and stuff. But either way, did you guys check out the poll? Today's the last day of the poll, and the poll ends today, and then tomorrow they'll have a new polling question. But it was, how was your faith during the pandemic? And the numbers have completely changed. They've completely changed, and I love it. I really, really do. So Number one spot was difficult, meaning it wasn't as good as before, and that's 38%. So that went down like 4% within the week, right? It actually went even more, but started very high, almost 50%, and now it's down to 38%, which I think is a good sign. Second, I love it. Second is faith is better than ever. Great, and that's 27%. So over a quarter of the people are great and amazing. And then third, which I love, is good. Faith is growing. So that's 19%, which means that on the positive level, that's like 46%. So almost half the people are that have taken the poll, about 46% are doing well. Like they're in a better position right now. The average, which is straight in the middle, is 10%, and then terrible is 6%, which means those struggling and those doing good, it's about half. So difficult and terrible is 44%. Great and good is 46%, and then you have 10% down the middle, right? Does that make sense? Did I do that right? 44% is difficult and terrible, and 46% is, that makes sense. Yeah, 46% is going to be great and good. So it's kind of about like right down the line, you have 10% right in the middle. So I think that's a good sign. It's a very, very good sign. You got about half on one end, half on the other, and 10% straight through the middle. But of course, even though it's like, wow, there's so many people doing well, we still got to think about that's 44% that's doing worse than they were before. So that's still a big chunk of people. And especially with the messages and all the different things that are going on and, just kind of us helping each other and such. I think this is something that we can rate. I'll do this questionnaire once again. How is your faith now compared to the pandemic? And not right now, probably a little bit later down the road when it comes to the end of the year. Probably I'll do something like that. All right. Tomorrow is Provi in the media. And there are a bunch of things to talk about. But crazy thing is, that Massimo Introvigne, the guy who does like religious liberties and such, he just wrote another article on Sunstein's most recent detainment. He wrote an article on that. So that's going to be kind of cool to look at tomorrow. But like I said, from a scholarly and unbiased view, what he thinks about the situation. And like I read the article, straight down the middle. He's not looking at things of whether it's right or wrong that Sunstein's there. He's just looking at facts and kind of telling people like, oh, this is what the facts are right now. So take a look at this. So we'll take a look at that article tomorrow. All right. Some cool channel comments this week. This one's from someone, Colin in Korea, and he said, when I was a middle school student, I was lost because I didn't know the purpose of life, but I knew vaguely that love is kind of the answer to my life, but I didn't know what kind of love is right. I finally came to Providence a few years later, and it was the happiest moment for me to find the answer and purpose of my life. And surprisingly, I was kind of right. Love was the ultimate answer. But the shocking and amazing part was that I was born to fulfill the love of the Trinity. And even though I thought I realized the ultimate purpose of creation, I started to forget the meaning of love many times whenever I struggled with my life. Either way, thanks again for letting me realize how precious our faith and love is. I want to keep this love until the end with the Lord. Have a great weekend. Safe flight to Malaysia. So thank you so much, Colin, over there. Another one is two people that wrote. First one is from Paula over there in the Philippines. She said, I'm so thankful for the word study about historical evidence of Jesus' existence because I researched about that in the past, but couldn't find a good article or good historical argument for Jesus' existence. But it's something I always want to know about for my own understanding and to teach others in the future. Now I'm equipped. And then we had a great response also from Nelly. And she said, same here, Paula. I was just thinking the other day, how can I tell people why I go to church and believe in Jesus if they don't believe Jesus existed to begin with, and then think the religion is fabricated? So it's as if Jesus and Holy Spirit read my mind and answered through Pastor Sky. It's good to have these articles to extract points from so that our rationale is also from outside the Bible and sounds more believable and normal to others. So that's a great thread that was over there too. Last one, I believe this is from Christy. And she said, I watched Passion of the Christ twice this year. For me, that's two times too many, but because it's really strong. But I suggest everyone watches at least once. At that time, I was really shocked and felt so much sorrow one realization and determination I had was to truly love one another, even though it's not easy sometimes. But just seeing what Jesus went through because people didn't love, it was really heartbreaking. I heard the actor also went through so much suffering through the film and set a lot of conditions to really deliver the Shimjung of Jesus. And I think it was really delivered so powerfully. So, yeah, those of you guys who haven't seen it, watch Passion of the Christ. It is powerful and you need a box of Kleenex. Like, I watched it once and I'm never going to watch it again. It's too visceral. It's just too, yeah, just thinking about it makes me like choke up a bit. But either way, but if you haven't seen it, go watch it, guys. It's really, really powerful. All right. Also, especially with Sky, we had a video that came out last week on divorce and remarriage. Hope you guys really enjoyed that one. Go ahead and leave it out there. Go ahead, especially for that channel. By the way, we hit 4,000 subscribers for that YouTube channel, so I'm super happy about that. And go ahead, take a look at it. Make sure you leave a like, a comment, subscribe, click the notification bell. These are all things that help the algorithm so that this channel can go out to more people. But I hope it's something that a lot of you are benefiting from more than just trying to support. I hope it's benefiting people. All right. So go ahead, check that out. And, we're doing a lot of stuff on social media trying to get more attention to this channel. So hopefully you guys can pray for my channel too. Those of you guys who want Provi clothing, you can get your Provi clothes and show your pride through Proverbs on our t-shirts and through what we wear. So go ahead, check out the description. The link is in the description below, so go ahead, check that out. It's both on SoundCloud and YouTube. And big shout-outs. Shout-outs this week. Tina in Taiwan, Dr. Zinni over there in Canada, and Jade in Australia. Super grateful for supporting us here on Patreon, for believing and supporting this channel. If you want to support us too, then check out the Patreon link in the description. And if you're on SoundCloud, click the blue button on the homepage. Patreon, it's an amazing platform because it's crowdfunding, which means that I'm not looking for one person to give me like $10,000, whatever it is, right? It's just basically like 100 or 1,000 people giving $1, $3, $5, whatever it is per month. And then you can live off this too. And you can put out content like we're doing for MSD and for Espresso with Sky. So at the moment, if you go into Patreon, there's like lecture training, there's Bible studies. Go ahead, check that out too, all right? And of course, 90% of the people on this site on Patreon, they're there just to support. Like 90% aren't even watching the videos. It's just 90% are there just wanting to support these channels so they continue to go on. Because eventually it comes to the point if I can't support myself, what happens is then I can't do these things because I'll have to, go get like a 9-to-5 job or something along that line. So basically purely up to you guys, all right? So let's get into some member music from around the world. What is happening today on this amazing Monday? Who is our featured artist of the day? It is none other than someone who's just been popping into our YouTube channel in the comments too. It is Zeniac from the Pink Music Associates in Korea. I just clicked onto his Instagram too, so now I know what he actually looks like, right? So here's Zeniac from the Pink Music Associates in Korea, and this song is called Plutonium. After that, we have Kiro Black and Julius Miumo from Australia with Inside My Head, and then we'll end things off with Renee Lai from Taiwan, who is going to have a baby in a couple of weeks, and this song is a cover from a Canadian singer, Avril Lavigne, Head Above Water.
뒤돌아보면 안 된다. Society's full of zombies and I'm fighting for survival. It's just me and the voice inside my head, that's my rival. It's peaceful in my city, but I think I'm going psycho. An upside down world where people look down to their idols. Yeah, my mind space is like a hellscape, but planet Earth's a crazy place. So stay in my own world between reality or insanity. The lines are blurred, and I don't know what's real anymore, or what's inside my head. All these thoughts that bring me down into the wall inside my head. I'm living in the twilight zone. I'm hyper-connected, but at the same time disconnected. Convicted in large crowds is when I'm most on my own. Take a peek through the window of my soul. I've kept the fire burning ever since I heard that winter was coming. The coldness of their heart, there's no use running, no escaping. Deep to the bone, it leaves a king shaking in his throne. Yeah, I don't know what's real anymore, or what's inside my head. All these thoughts that bring me down into the wall inside my head. What's real anymore, or what's inside my head. All these thoughts that bring me down into the wall inside my head. Society's full of zombies and I'm fighting for survival. It's just me and the voice inside my head, that's my rival. It's peaceful in my city, but I think I'm going psycho. An upside down world where people look down to their idols. Yeah, my mind space is like a hellscape, but planet Earth's a crazy place. So stay in my own world between reality or insanity. The lines are blurred.
I've gotta keep the calm before the storm. I don't want less, I don't want more. But by the windows and the doors, to keep me safe, to keep me warm. Yeah, my life is what I'm fighting for. Can't part the sea, can't reach the shore. And my voice becomes the driving force. I won't let this pull me overboard. God, keep my head above water, don't let me drown. It gets harder, I'll meet you there at the altar as I fall down to my knees. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Don't let me keep my head above water. I lose my breath at the bottom. Come rescue me. I'll be waiting. I'm too young to fall asleep. God, keep my head above water. Don't let me drown. It gets harder. I'll meet you there at the altar as I fall down to my knees. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Don't let me drown. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Keep my head above water, above water.
And that was Renee Lai from Taiwan with the song Head Above Water. That's a cover of Avril Lavigne, Canadian. Before that, Kiro Black and Julius Miumo from Australia with Inside My Head. And of course, feature artist of the day, that is Zeniac from PMA in Korea with Plutonium. All right, so let's get into some news going on all over the world. What have we missed over the weekend? And of course, what are the 3 reasons why we listen to the news? Number 1, we need to see what we need to report and pray for. 2, see what God is doing in the world. And last but not least, what are the things we can comfort God's heart in? So let's first start off with Russia, Ukraine. What are the updates going on over the weekend? Russian President Vladimir Putin has said there is no need for more massive strikes on Ukraine days after the heaviest bombardment of the country since the war began. He said most designated targets of the strikes had been hit, adding that it was not his aim to destroy Ukraine. Moscow's goal of mobilizing 300,000 men would be met within 2 weeks, he said, and it comes as Russian forces are mostly in retreat and Ukraine advances almost 8 months since the invasion. Speaking to journalists after a summit with regional leaders in Kazakhstan's capital, Astana, the Russian leader said that the recent strikes had destroyed 22 out of the 29 targets in Ukraine set by the military and that they are getting the remaining 7. There's no need for massive strikes. We now have other tasks, he said. From Monday onwards, Russia unleashed a wave of strikes on cities across Ukraine in what Putin said was retaliation for a blast which damaged a key bridge between Russia and annexed Crimea. Dozens of people were killed and injured in the strikes, which also damaged infrastructure. Central areas of Kyiv were targeted for the first time since the invasion. But Putin said it was not Russia's intention to destroy Ukraine, but he did not regret the invasion. President Putin said 220,000 men had been mobilized, of whom 16,000 were already in combat. He saw no need for additional mobilization. However, the collapse has caused widespread discontent in Russia, with tens of thousands of men fleeing to neighboring countries. The BBC also found evidence of the poor level of training such conscripts or recruits received before being sent to the front. Meanwhile, the BBC Russian service says it has identified more than 7,500 Russian service personnel who have died in the Ukraine war. The actual level of casualties is believed to be much higher, and there are reports that some recently mobilized troops have been killed. In other developments from Friday till now, Russian government says a key bridge linking annexed Crimea to Russia, damaged in a blast last Saturday, must be repaired by July next year. So it's going to take almost a year to fix it. Ukrainian officials are urging the Red Cross to visit the notorious Olenivka prison in the Russian-occupied east of the country within 3 days. Elon Musk has said his rocket company SpaceX cannot continue indefinitely to fund the Starlink internet service in Ukraine, now seen as vital to the country's communications infrastructure. Amid reports, he has asked the U.S. Defense Department to do so. But I know in the latest news, he did say they're still going to fund them for now, but they can't do it indefinitely. That's just a lot of money. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has backed a Russian proposal to set up a gas hub in Turkey for supplies to Europe. And a UK intelligence report says Russian forces from the private military company Wagner Group have captured 2 villages in Donetsk region in their first successful advance in the area for 3 months. So that's kind of what's going on over there in Russia and the Ukraine. Let's move over to China. So China just had their Congress, and Xi Jinping doubles down on zero COVID as meeting opens. China's President Xi Jinping signaled there would be no immediate loosening of his controversial zero COVID strategy as a historic Communist Party Congress opened in Beijing. In a break in decades-long tradition, delegates are likely to hand Mr. Xi a 3rd term as party chief. Zero COVID was a people's war to stop the spread of the virus, he said, and the policy has saved lives, but also exacted a punishing toll on the Chinese people and economy. There's increasing public fatigue over lockdowns and travel restrictions, and Beijing has come under strict security measures ahead of the Congress, sparking frustration in the city with a rare and dramatic public protest on Thursday criticizing Mr. Xi and zero COVID. Mr. Xi also addressed the issue of Taiwan, which China claims as part of its territory. Self-governing Taiwan sees itself as distinct from the mainland, and speaking slowly and deliberately, he said Beijing would never compromise to renounce the use of force and that complete reunification of our country must and will be realized, prompting sustained applause from delegates. On Hong Kong, Mr. Xi said Beijing had exerted control there, turning the situation from chaos to governance. Beijing imposed a sweeping national security law on the territory after pro-democracy demonstrations in 2019. Mr. Xi also made reference to divisions within China's political establishment, saying his rule had removed serious hidden dangers in the party. And since reaching top office, he has overseen a wide-reaching corruption crackdown extending to the highest echelons of the party, but critics have portrayed it as a political purge. He also added that China would accelerate the building of its military, referencing the terms safety or security some 73 times. The speech, which lasted less than 2 hours, was significantly shorter than his speech at the last Congress in 2017. His remarks have likely had their choice of words workshopped for months, and analysts will be poring over it for any signs of policy shifts. A third term as leader of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, will pave the way for him to become the most powerful leader since Mao Zedong. Now, about 2,300 delegates are meeting to elect party leaders and debate key policies. And over the course of the Congress, delegates are also expected to elect various leaders, including the Politburo Standing Committee, China's equivalent of a presidential cabinet, who will present themselves to waiting media after the Congress. In the past, the twice-a-decade Congress was seen as a chance for leaders to promote their supporters as they vied to increase the power of their factions within the party. But observers say these days there appears to be only one faction at the 20th Party Congress, and that is of Mr. Xi. In a clear sign of this consolidation of power, top Chinese Communist Party leaders released a communication days earlier endorsing him as the core of the party and leadership. They also called for the party to unite even more closely behind him. Mr. Xi currently holds the three most powerful positions in China: General Secretary of the CCP, Chairman of the country's armed forces, and President. He's expected to renew his term for the first two titles at Congress. Now, the CCP doesn't set any term limits, but no leader besides Mao, the founder of Communist China, has ever served a third term. The presidency also used to have a two-term limit in the country's constitution, put in place before reformer Deng Xiaoping to prevent the rise of a Mao-like figure. But Mr. Xi has managed to eliminate this requirement. In 2018, China's rubber stamp parliament abolished the rule, effectively allowing him to remain president for as long as he likes. Since taking power in 2012, Mr. Xi has led China on a path that has been equal parts ambitious and authoritarian. He has pushed for a great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, which saw him pursuing economic reform, reducing pollution, and alleviating poverty. And he has also launched crackdowns on the Uyghurs in Xinjiang and pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. But Xi continues to face a multitude of challenges, such as youth unemployment, a slowing economy, and the ongoing property crisis, and of course, zero COVID. Many will also be watching the Congress to see if there will be any alteration to Beijing's foreign policy, especially towards the world's other superpower, the US. Xi's attempts to expand China's influence abroad through the One Belt, One Road program and claims in the South China Sea, as well as its support of Russia in the Ukraine war and its recent military exercises around Taiwan, have raised tensions with the U.S. and other countries. Mr. Xi remained at the helm. All these will continue to be core interests, though some experts believe he may temper China's approach in some aspects to pursue better trade relations with the U.S. and regional partners. So it's going to be another term of Xi. So it's something. Xi Jinping. Yeah, the more you see what's happening in China, the more you know that the answer obviously is not complete capitalism and like absolute democracy. But you also know on the flip side, it's not communism either, right? I would rather be on the democracy side, like far democracy side, than in communism, even at the lightest level of communism, right? So it's very interesting to see what's happening in China right now. Last but not least, let's go over to Africa. We're going to Uganda. right? So Ebola, right? There's a 3-week lockdown announced for 2 districts because their country is battling an Ebola outbreak. Bars, nightclubs, places of worship, and entertainment venues will be closed in Uganda, and a curfew will come into force. The move is a U-turn for Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, who previously said there was no need for such measures. This latest outbreak has killed 19 people among 58 recorded cases. However, the real number of deaths and cases may be higher. The outbreak began in early September in Mubende, about 80 kilometers from the capital Kampala, and has remained the epicenter. President Museveni had previously ruled out lockdown, saying Ebola was not an airborne virus, so did not require the same measures as COVID-19. But on Saturday, he halted all movement in and out of Mubende and Kasanda districts for 21 days. Cargo trucks will still be allowed to enter and leave the areas, he said, but all other transport will be stopped. These are temporary measures to control the spread of Ebola, he said in a televised address. And he said we should all cooperate with authorities so we bring this outbreak to an end in the shortest possible time. The president had already ordered police to arrest anyone suspected of having the virus who refused to isolate, and he has forbidden traditional healers from trying to handle cases. In previous outbreaks, healers have been associated with hotspots for spread of the virus. So the first recorded death in this outbreak was a 24-year-old man in Mubende. 6 members of his family also died. It later reached the capital Kampala, with 1 death recorded in October, but health officials said the city remained virus-free as the man who died had traveled from Mubende. This latest outbreak is of the Sudan strain of the virus, for which there is no approved vaccine. The Zaire strain, which killed 11,000 people in an outbreak across West Africa from 2013 to 2016, can be vaccinated against. Ebola spreads through direct contact with bodily fluids or contaminated material, and symptoms include vomiting, diarrhea, and in some cases, internal or external bleeding. The incubation period can last from 2 days to 3 weeks, and the virus can be associated with other illnesses such as malaria and typhoid. So there it is, guys. That's top 3 news that we can pray about right now that's going on in the world and what we missed over the weekend, all right? So let's get into some sporting news. We'll start off with some soccer news. EPL over the weekend, Tottenham defeats Everton 2-0. Chelsea defeats Aston Villa 2-0. Arsenal on top of the standings is 1-0 over Leeds, and Man U ties Newcastle 0-0. In Spanish La Liga, we have Real Madrid defeating Barcelona in El Clasico 3-1. In NHL news, yes, I'm super excited about this. I watched this game too. It was early on Saturday, and we went up 2-0. Vancouver's beating Philadelphia 2-0, and then same thing happened like last game. They scored 3 straight, and we lost again. It was just brutal. So I was just like, I wasn't very happy. In other news around the NHL, last year's best team in the league, Florida Panthers, defeat the Buffalo Sabres 4-3. Boston Bruins defeat the Phoenix Coyotes 6-3. Detroit beats New Jersey 5-2. Pittsburgh, probably one of my favorite teams, with Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin. They defeat the Tampa Bay Lightning 6-2. Toronto, in an all-Canadian matchup against the Ottawa Senators, defeat them 3-2. Washington beats Montreal 3-1. The Islanders over the Anaheim Mighty Ducks 7-1. And the Dallas Stars beat the Nashville Predators 5-1. The LA Kings defeat the Minnesota Wild 7-6 in a high-scoring game. And then St. Louis beats Columbus 5-2. Calgary, another all-Canadian matchup. Calgary defeats Edmonton in the Battle of Alberta 4-3. Chicago beats San Jose 5-2. And then Las Vegas defeats the Seattle Kraken 5-2. Last but not least, we have the Major League Baseball playoffs in the National League Divisional Series. Both the Divisional Series is done. Philadelphia defeats Atlanta 8-3 in Game 4, and they advance to the Championship Series. And then San Diego shocks the LA Dodgers, who had 111 wins this year, number 1 team in the league, 5-3, and San Diego wins the series against the best team in Major League Baseball. So it's Philadelphia versus San Diego in the Championship Series. Now, in the American League, Houston just sweeps Seattle 3-0 as they won their final game 1-0 in 18 innings, which means it was basically 2 games in 1. And they move on to the Championship Series in the American League. And today there'll be Game 3 of Cleveland versus the New York Yankees. Cleveland won the last game 6-5, so they can finish it all off if they beat the Yankees today. All right, so there it is, guys. That is the top 3 news in sports and top 3 news around the world. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. But you know what that means. Yes, it is the golden time. And yes, it is the golden time, a time of praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. Hope all of you guys are looking forward to giving glory to God and the Holy Spirit. So what are we going to praise and worship today? We're going to start off with So Awesome, and then Fire, It's Fire, and we'll break things down with Set Up the New Sail. So as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
He's awesome, that's right. That's right.
The Lord is absolutely fulfilled the will with his heart, will, and life.
He's awesome, that's right. That's right.
Well, I'm convicted. I'll keep God's purpose for all time. With love in my heart, I'll walk this path rejoicing for life. Life is awesome when I'm living with the Lord. My life is finally made the will of God come true. I'm so proud of my life. Now my future is so bright. My spirit is shining. Oh, awesome life.
Whatever they say, I will never give up on the will.
I know that my life's so awesome. Read and established by God Almighty. Providence is God's history.
It is awesome, that's right. That's right.
With all my life, I'll always protect this history, the Lord and his will.
I am awesome, that's right. That's right.
But I'm convicted. I walk this path and testify. With love in my heart, I sing it off with thanks on high. Life is awesome when I'm living with the Lord. My life is finally made the will of God come true. I'm so proud of my life. Now my future is so bright. My spirit is shining. Oh, awesome life.
Whatever they say, I will never give up on the will.
I know that my life's so awesome.
For God's will of creation, I raise my level with the Lord always until forever. When we don't know what's boring, since I know I'm all in my heart, in my mind, in my thoughts and actions. I change through the Lord's charisma, and I'm deeply rooted in this history. I'm always the ace, I won't be shaken. Word is the base, so cool you can't mistake it.
I found my true ID. I chose my direction. I'm resolute that it's my lifetime career. I've received the Lord's thoughts, fulfill the purpose with him.
Look just how awesome my life has become.
I'm so proud of my life.
Even I think that I look who making history.
Now my future's so
Since I'm
bright.
soaring up a light that comes out from the heavens.
My spirit is
My
shining.
spirit shines because I love the Lord forever,
Oh,
always.
awesome life.
Whatever they say, I will never give up on the will.
I'm so proud of my life.
Even I think that I look who making history.
Now my future's so
Since I'm
bright.
soaring up a light that comes out from the heavens.
My spirit is
My
shining.
spirit shines because I love the Lord forever,
Oh,
always.
awesome life.
Whatever they say, I will never give up on the will.
I know that my life's so awesome. How you turn this whole upside down.
Fire, fire, fire! Boldly shout it aloud! Fire, fire, fire! Shout it cool and proud!
The time's come, we were waiting.
Waiting
The Savior's light is shining on us.
on us!
We're a witness to the word. We're a witness to the Lord. We will preach about this time.
Let's run together to the next level.
We are the only one.
There is only one true history, God's word of truth.
We are the only one.
Our voice is only growing louder.
It's the best history. We're burning with the Holy Spirit's heart. We know the power of truth. Shout it out.
How you turn the world upside down.
We are on fire!
Word is fire. Fire, fire,
over the whole world, all the deceit and lies will be destroyed, burned. The Lord has come to bring fire on earth, that He's wishing that it were already kindled. This bringing history, the complete history. What we need right now is to preach His history. The word of fire, spirit of fire. Love is on fire, with a fire, fire, fire. Fire, fire, fire. Boldly shout it aloud. Fire, fire, fire. Shout it cool and proud.
We are the only one. There is only one true history, God's the word of truth. We are the only one. Our voice is only growing louder. It's the message stream. We're burning with the Holy Spirit's fire. We know the power of truth. Shout it out.
Fiery Holy Spirit, fiery testify.
We're burning with the Holy Spirit's fire. We know the power of truth. Shout it out. Nothing turns the world back now.
We are on fire.
Words of fire.
Hot, hot, hot.
Spirit of fire.
We are on fire.
Walls of fire.
Hot, hot, hot.
Preach with fire. Fire, fire, fire. Words of fire.
Hot, hot, hot.
Spirit of fire.
We are on fire.
Walls of fire.
Hot, hot, hot.
Preach with fire. Fire, fire, fire.
Lord, your path is much better than mine. I confess this to you. Lord, your thoughts are much higher than mine. This I confess to you. If I row, I won't reach the end. So I will set up your sail. On my own, I can't overcome all of the waves of the world. I need you, Savior. So I'll quickly raise your sail in my heart. These waves won't stop me. I will overcome the seas of this world with your strength. I'll raise up a new sail, my Lord. I'll plant it in my center. I will act on your will with the mask and the sail of the Trinity's thoughts. I will keep them in my heart, and I will go until the very end. I've received such a blessed time. Even the rapture is mine. Now I'll surely set up the sail of the new what you gave. I'll rapture higher while fulfilling the purpose of God. I'll travel onward till I
And that was Set Up the New Sail. Hope you guys enjoyed that. That's a really, really old, not really old, but it's an old song, but definitely an oldie but a goodie. Before that, Fire, It's Fire, and So Awesome. All right, so let's get into today's word study as our hearts have been made and prepared through today's praise and worship. And what a powerful and amazing message. And of course, I don't even know if I want to talk about the other parts, because that part in the middle where Sunseam says this is the part that a lot of people are struggling with, and he kind of just, opened up why we believed, or what was the difference in our thinking and what went wrong. Like, that is the thing that really stuck out to me most. But that beginning part was something that I liked the introduction a lot. Right? Like, everything exists with power and strength, right? If the sun, moon, and stars had no strength or power, then they would just die off, right? People too, you need strength. And if you lose it, if we lose strength, we don't want to do anything. It's difficult to think, it's difficult to move, and we kind of just collapse. And I'm like, oh, that's so true. And I'm sure everyone related to that. We're like, yes, sometimes you want to do nothing. And faith is the same thing too. And I really like this this connection here, that if you don't have spiritual power or strength, you don't even want to listen to the word. And as sometimes people will say, like, what's wrong? Come on, the word is everything. Why don't you listen to the word? But technically speaking, if you've lost strength, you don't even want to listen to you don't want to pray. You don't even want to pray. It's like, I'm going to tell you this. Even for myself during the pandemic, there was a point I just didn't want to praise. I don't want to praise. I'm like, oh gosh, right? But you kind of realize you lost that spiritual strength. You don't want to take action. You don't want to realize from the word. You just kind of want to go on with your life or lay around and do nothing. And that's something I've experienced before too, like even recently from the pandemic. And this part here was very telling for me. I'm going to be very transparent about this. Is people seem really strong, and for myself is I would have to seem strong because I'm a pastor, right? I'm a leader, and in my own mind, I think to myself, oh, I can't let myself be shown weak. So I'll show myself strong, but you won't really know how strong you are or what's going to happen until you get to experience these very huge hardships in life. And it's kind of a common cliche. When things are good, everyone does well. Everyone looks like a hero. But it's when things are bad, how are you when things turn bad? So people lose strength when things don't turn out their way or the way that they want, right? And Sunseam gave great examples about not getting a job or not getting a promotion, not getting the grades in school, not getting the school of choice that you want. And I'm sure that's some of the things that a lot of the SS are facing right now. And sometimes we have problems within our families. And when we look at life in general, it's very rare that we're going to see the most ideal circumstances happening in our favor in life itself. And we lose strength in many different ways. And of course, when we hear about a bunch of messages where people start talking against others inside Providence, that's another thing people lose strength in. It's like, oh gosh, why is it still like this? People say things against them. They lose strength because of, rumors about them. Or sometimes we just get anxious and worried, and we kind of reach a certain limit. And right now is that time where all of Providence is going through another, it's kind of like we thought there wasn't going to be another difficulty, but we're in another difficulty, and we've lost strength, and we're worried and afraid and confused, and what's happening, right? There's so many problems happening, and big problems too. And we just can't leave ourselves in this situation. And this is why we really need to get the power from the word and prayer. Right? And that's kind of like the key thing is we need to stand up through the word in prayer, even though it's difficult. That's the only way we're going to get it. It's almost like saying, oh, I have no strength. And someone says you need to eat to get energy for your body. You're like, oh, I'm too tired to eat, which means that you're rejecting the very thing that's going to give you the energy you need. Of course, it takes energy to eat, but still, you have to think about it in that light, right? So in order for us we need to stand up, encourage each other, be united, and we're going to gain strength from the new history, okay? So that's kind of like the basics of it, right? And that's not the main thing I want to talk about. The main thing I want to talk about is what with Jesus and the Holy Son, right? This is the part that most people are having trouble in the message, because it's like, wait a second, I thought everything's about the Holy Son. So I had to listen to this 8 times, just trying to figure out what is the exact details of why are we learning it this way, right? And the biggest remember in 2012 when the Holy Son lesson came out, the biggest thing that we learned at that time was the separation between Jesus and the Holy Son. That there's a what do you call it? Something, the branch, the original, which is the Holy Son of the Trinity, and then there's a branch entity, which is the body that the Holy Son uses. So we have that, right? So we're like going, oh, so that's what happened. And then of course, when Jesus, we go to 1 Peter chapter 3, Jesus goes into to preach the imprisoned spirits, while the Holy Son, original entity, goes back into heaven. Okay. And then who's going to come back again? The Holy Son. The most important figure is the Holy Son. So we're like, okay, so that makes sense, right? Because only the Holy Trinity can save. Human beings can't do that. We all know this, right? So this is when we're going, got it. This makes sense. But one thing that he brought up and that I thought was very interesting is we learned this lesson in 2012. Okay, so 2012 is how many years? So you have 21 years in the mountains that he learned the word up until 1978, right? And then 1978 to 2012 is how many years? So 70, 88, 98, 08. It's like 34 years. So 2012 is 34 years already into this history, plus another 21 years of him training the mountain. So we learned the Holy Son at like, if you add all those years together, 34 years of providence plus 21 is like 55 years. Okay? So 55 years has passed. And the problem that we have is we all of a sudden just threw away everything that we learned from before, right? We threw it all away. And we only looked at that. So like, wait a second. Then we get confused because we threw away everything in the past. And we only took from that Holy Son lesson in 2012. And when you throw away all the things of the past, you're throwing away the foundation, right? You're throwing away the foundation. And so the question came down to is like, well, what does it mean that the Holy Son is coming back? Well, we need to realize is like one thing that I got from it, and this is what I believe, is when the Holy Son came down at the time of Jesus. Now remember, we're understanding how it works with the Holy Son, right? When the Holy Son came down, his body was Jesus, right? And then the two became one. So they're united and they can never be broken, right? So that's one thing we have to understand is like, even though we're separating, we cannot break them apart again. Yes, in concept, Jesus went down to the imprisoned spirits and then the Holy Son went to his throne in heaven. So that's a concept, right? But just because two people are away from each other doesn't mean they're still not one. Right? So even when we think about now at the time of Sunsteam, right? At the time of the rapture, there is the Holy Son goes back into heaven during the time of the rapture 3:16, right? So he goes back up into heaven, right? The Holy Son, right? That's Holy Son, not Sunsteam. Holy Son goes up. Sunsteam's still here. So what does that mean? Does that mean like since the Holy Son is in heaven that he's no longer united with the man of mission? And the answer is no way. They're still united and one, right? So that's why we say that, even when it came down to like in the name of the Holy Son, there's the original and the branch, right? And they're united together. So, it's hard to keep saying original branch. So, even though we separated in concept, we still understand that the two are one, right? Nothing happens without the other. All right. So in the same way too, you got to think about in the New Testament time is the moment Holy Son becomes one with Jesus, right? He becomes one with Jesus. So now Jesus becomes the Son of God because the Holy Son, the Spirit of God descends upon him. Okay. And then same thing happens is Holy Son goes back up into heaven. Jesus goes and preaches in the spiritual prisons and stuff like that too. Even though they're separated, they're still one, right? So if we keep that in mind, remember the Holy Son lesson is just to understand the concept of the original and the branch, but they are still united. They're still united as one, right? You can't separate them again, right? And in the same way too, if we're expecting Jesus to come back again, when Jesus comes back, it also means the Holy Son. Why? Because they are one. So now we can't, all of a sudden we can't just say, well, Jesus can't come back anymore because he's separate from the Holy Son. No. The point of the Holy Son is to separate the two in concept, just so you know that they're two separate entities, yet they are still one being. Which means, how did the Holy Son come back? The Holy Son comes back through the Spirit of Jesus, right? They come together. Why? Because they're always one. They're always united, right? So when Christians and people of the former faith, me, all of us too, we were all waiting for the Lord's second coming. We're waiting for Jesus to come back again, right? But in our hearts, we realize, oh, it's Jesus and the Holy Son. It's the Holy Son that comes back, because without the Holy Son, who is Jesus, right? Jesus is not the Messiah without the Holy Son. The two must become one. But the moment they become one, you can't just start separating them again. They are one. Sansim loved Jesus more than anyone else. Sansim loved Jesus, waited for him to come. He couldn't wait for Jesus, right? So when Jesus came to start teaching him in the mountains, of course it's Jesus coming, but remember, Jesus and the Holy Son are one. Jesus' spirit came down. Sansim loved him so much, and he began to learn the words, right? Holy Son cannot come down without Jesus. Why? The two are one. Jesus came back as the bridegroom. And this is why during that time, Sansim is realizing the word through the Spirit of Jesus. Why? Because Jesus is supposed to come back, which also means the Holy Son is going to come back. Why? Because the two are one. Remember, the point of the Holy Son lesson is not to separate them and say they are now broken. Holy Son and Jesus are no longer connected. No, you can't say that. It's impossible, because then you break Scripture. Scripture says they are one, and they'll forever and ever they'll be one. And this is why Jesus comes back again, right? When we say Jesus, we're also talking about the Holy Son coming back, because the two are one. And they teach and they raise the new man of mission to become the body for this complete testament time. And the whole time before 2012, before we learned the Holy Son lesson, what did we learn? It's like we just thought Jesus is the Holy Son. And technically speaking, it is true. It's not incorrect to say Jesus is the Holy Son. He is the Son of God, right? However, in 2012, we begin to realize the separation of the original and the branch. They're still united. They're still one. It's just that we understand is that Jesus was literally a human being. And he was someone who was trained and made by the Holy Son, became one, and became the Messiah. And this is why we're here at this position right now. What did Sansim do? 21 years in the mountains, received the Spirit of Jesus, learned from Jesus, which is also the Holy Son. Why? Because the two are one. So before 2012, it's true when we say Jesus. It's true when we say Holy Son, because they are literally one, right? Literally one. And then 2012, we begin to realize the original entity. So even though they're one entity, like one body, it's almost like having a body and spirit in the one body, right? Yes, there's two separate there's a body and a spirit. They're separate. However, inside this shell of a body, the two are there together, right? So this is what kind of makes it confusing for us, is because it kind of hit me too. It's like, oh, that's so true, because after we learned the Holy Son, we just talked about the Holy Son, Holy Son, Holy Son, Holy Son, Holy Son. Everything's about the Holy Son, all Holy Son. And I don't think that's a bad thing to do, because when you look at the way, even when you look at the way God's history works, when I think about predestination, remember the bad thing that happened, and the reason why predestination became such a big topic at the time of Martin Luther was why. It was such a big topic because the church went too far to action, right? They were way too far into action. So because they're way too far into action, what did Martin Luther do? He swung it to the other side. So it almost felt like it was all free will. But the whole purpose was people need to realize both sides deeply, but understand that both exist at the same time, right? So if you go too extreme to one side and you only go to the middle, that side's not going to realize what it means. You need to go to the extreme of the other side. And then once people realize this side and that side, this is when you can bring people together and go down to the middle. But if you go from one left extreme and then go to center, it's only going to reach the middle in between the left and center. You need to go all the way to the right so that once you understand both sides, you can meet in the middle, right? And that's something I think that we have to realize too, is we had to realize deeply about the Holy Son, and it became something we centered on more, just centering on the Holy Son. Once we realize completely about the Holy Son and this separation between the man of mission and the Holy Son, this is when we're able to put it all back together. Right? And that was the part that hit me, is like, yeah, when the Holy Son lesson came out, we completely threw away like 55 years of teaching. Like it never existed before. But then we're like, oh, the only reason we're confused is now we're coming back to center, where the center should be. Yeah, Jesus came back because in order for the Holy Son to come back, the Jesus to come back too, because the two are one. You can never separate them. And this time he comes back as the bridegroom. So remember what Sunseem said in the message is, when I received Jesus as the Messiah and I listened to the words, Jesus became like the Holy Son to me, in the position of the Holy Son, right? And that's why we looked up to Jesus so much. And then later, 2012, we begin to realize, it's the original. Okay, this makes more sense. But it doesn't negate the fact it was Jesus. The two are one, right? So that's kind of where I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense to me. Okay, this makes a lot more sense to me, and this is where I was getting at. So, guys, I want to hear what you guys think about this too, but this is something that I looked at as like, oh, this makes a lot more sense. Okay, I got it now. This makes more sense to me. So, it makes more clear sense, and I hope that's something that we keep in our hearts and our minds, that it has to make clear sense to us, all right? So there it is, guys. That's the word study for today. Let me know if you have any more ideas and thoughts about the Holy Son and this Jesus and Holy Son confusion that some people were having, but I'm super thankful and happy that God reinstated, talked about it in detail. Okay, so there it is. That is the word study for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Leave a comment below if you have anything you want to say about this, which leads us into the song of choice on this Filipino Monday. And I found this singer named Angeline Quinto. I played one of her songs in the past, and this song is called At Ang Hirap. And if you Filipino members out there, please let me know what this means. At Ang Hirap from Angeline Quinto.
Naglalagay ng kolorete sa aking mukha, para di nila malaman ang tunay na naganap, na ikaw at ako ay hindi na. Iniensayo pang mga ngiti para di halata. Damdamin ko'y pinipigil, sa loob umiiyak, dahil ikaw at ako ay hindi na. At ang hirap, magpapanggap na ba ako na ako ay masaya, kahit ang totoo ay talagang wala ka na. At kung bukas, pagmulat ng aking mata, may mahal ka ng iba, wala na akong magagawa. Hindi pa. Paano ko sasabihin sa mga kaibigan ko, kung ako din ang sisisihin? Nabulagan ako na ikaw at ako ay wala na. At ang hirap, magpapanggap na ba ako na ako ay masaya, kahit ang totoo ay talagang wala ka na. At kung bukas, pagmulat
And that was Angeline Quinto with At Ang Hirap. Filipino members out there, please let me know what the song is about, but I'm pretty sure it's a love song. So there it is. That is a song of choice for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed that on this Filipino Monday. We're going to get into the last segment. And of course, every single Monday, we have Eddie Kwan from San Francisco with 2G Talks. I hope that you guys really enjoy these. Please leave a comment below for Eddie too. He's always looking forward to responding to them too. All right. Please welcome Eddie Kwan with 2G Talks.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 2G Talks, and today's very special because today marks the 50th episode of 2G Talks so far. So I really want to thank, the Trinity especially, and all of the listeners, and Pastor Sky too, for this wonderful time that we've had to have. And really, there's so much to think about reaching 50 episodes, but the biggest thing that I was thinking was, it's really helpful to reflect in this sort of way. Right, in every sort of way we think about it, right? In terms of whether it's through writing or through speaking or through talking about it with other people, the act of reflecting is so important, and that's something that we think about a lot in Providence, right? And we really want to pray about things too. And really, in reality, as we're living, there's times when it's difficult to reflect, right? When we don't, and so even though we experience something, we don't necessarily learn from it. And I feel that way every time I open up my Photos app, actually. Because when I look back on the last few years together with everyone and together in this history and within Providence, we've done so much. It's so crazy just how much we've done, especially considering that it's the pandemic time. Right, and of course there were times when we were still doing things very carefully, and maybe sometimes that we were a little bit less careful. But there were also times that even though we had to see each other in person, we did this in a very effectual and very well organized way. Right, and so when I look back on all of the photos, man, it's so crazy, just everything that we've accomplished. But yeah, in our daily lives, it's easy to forget those things. So I'm really grateful for this segment too, because that's been a tremendous resource. Right, the fact that every week we were able to talk to each other in this sort of fashion and reflect back on the things that's transpired throughout the last week, as well as in the entire time that we've been doing this too. And so I really hope that for everyone too, that 2G Talks, that this segment, but not just 2G Talks, but this time, whenever you listen to this, not just the segment, but to the MSD 117.8, that time can be also a time of reflection, right? Together with other members, right? Not by yourselves, right? Not in oftentimes, like, not with the members who you see all the time, right? And not with your family, but with members who you might never have seen face to face. Right? I heard Pastor Sky talking about that on Friday, right? For him, this sort of engagement is very one-on-one, right? And so the things that he gets from you guys are the comments that you leave and the likes and the things that you reach out to and you tell him too. In the same way, right? I really feel the same way too, because I often think about how everyone listening to this channel is doing. And there's so many of you who I haven't met in person, and even for those who I have met in person, I didn't know who you were prior to meeting you, and we didn't really get to interact in detail. But I really do hope that we get to do more of that going forward too. But in the meantime, if we can't do that, like Pastor Sky said, comments and any sort of things that you want to talk about, those kind of things are very effective for the time being. And so today, really thinking back on this previous week, I think back on something yesterday. It's been a general motif, but it's a little unclear. So actually, this time of reflection is something that I need as well. But I think it's important to really be able to think clearly about the past and reflect in a way where we're praying to the Trinity too. And we're also talking about it with people so that, the things that we didn't give shape to in the form of words, are given a shape so that we can really think about it clearly. Because yesterday I was hanging out with, some of my friends and my coworkers as well. And during that time, we entered serious conversation too. And I don't know how your guys' friends are, especially friends who are not of the world. But oftentimes they talk about things that have happened, and it's clear that the things that they've taken away from it are they haven't really clearly understood and they're not understanding the events of the past, even within their own lives, and the things that are going on currently. right? So even currently and in the past, like they might have been struggling with something or they might have struggled through something, but all that does is become kind of like a wound and a scar that they're dealing with and they're really having a tough time overcoming, right? And for us, that's where we always feel like the affinity for the word, right? And that's when we want to tell them, like, oh, you fool, like, and that's when it pricks our hearts, right? Like, oh my gosh, like we have this word that could help you navigate past that, and yet, because of, oftentimes when it's our close family members, like they're like the least receptive to hearing that from us, that it's kind of hard at times to approach that, right? But when we sit there and listening to them and listen to the things that they share with us, the difficulties that they're having, it's so hard not to feel those kind of emotions. Like so many of them have drama that's not, that's transpiring in their lives. That's really stuff that we don't deal with in Providence. And so at times when you sit there, I'm sure everyone has had experiences like this. When you sit there and listen to that, you're like, wow, like you're going through something like that. Like at the end of the day, it's something so trivial, and yet they still go through it because they aren't living according to this word in this direction, right? And I think it's so uncanny because we think about that a lot. Like yesterday, I was speaking to a couple of my friends, and they had their own issues too. But we also have a close friend who's going through a lot right now. He's in med school, I don't know how med school is across the various countries across the world, but in America, it's a very expensive endeavor, right? And it's a very long and extensive and a difficult time too. A lot of studying, to the point that you really, really don't want to do it anymore for a lot of people. And so one of my good friends, he's going to a really good school, UC San Francisco, which is one of the greatest medical schools, like, here in America. And so we were so proud of him during that entire time. And, all throughout undergraduate, he went to Berkeley too, right? Which is also a very good school. He studied really hard, and he worked really hard to get to where he is. But over the course of the last few years, he's been going through a lot of difficulties. His parents have been they've been going through the process of divorce, and it started a few years ago, and the process has just been so terrible, right? So muddled, and has so many problems. I think people don't realize just how expensive a divorce is, right? And for many time, hopefully for many people in Providence, this is something you haven't had to go through, because it can be such a sticky situation. So he hasn't spoken to me directly in recent history because he's so busy with school too. But he tells our other friends every time he sees us, he wants to he says something, right? And we want to hear from him too, because we know he's going through this difficult time. So he's talking about like the drain on his family's resources because of that. Neither of his parents are working anymore, and they're both retired, so they don't have money anyways, so they're fighting over money that neither of them have. And I heard yesterday that like his dad, we know about his dad too, right? His dad, because of this whole process, has ended up hospitalized too, because he just hasn't been taking care of himself, right? And he's having bouts of depression and all of these things too. And so even without going into details, this isn't to put a damper on anyone's moods, but the things that they go through, it's so trivial. Like the initial reasons why they were fighting, of course, they're very real and genuine. But we really think about that a lot in Providence, right? That had we been aligning ourselves to the gospel, to the purpose of creation from the beginning, then these are issues that later on down along the line that we don't have to deal with. Right? And that becomes a very frustrating thing at times, because we really think about the problems that people of the world try to deal with, and maybe even like on a macroscopic scale, the problem that the society and like the world tries to deal with, and our governments try to deal with, they're oftentimes symptoms, right? Because the core is different. Because they're wrong in the core and they have issues in the core, so many different negative symptoms come about from those things, including things like divorce and these sort of issues, and the issues with mistrust and of sin too. And so it really makes me think about how blessed we have it here in Providence. And in that moment, some people might be very bold, and it's a moment where you can evangelize your friends when they're sharing about stuff like that too. But other times it might be kind of difficult to breach those kind of topics, right? And to share about those things with our friends too. So whether it's easy or whether it's hard and whether it's capable or not, of course there are times where we just have to do it. But at the core, I think what we need to do is very clear, right? And it's something that, I think we really gain a lot, because there are times when it's really hard for each of us to love people in that capacity too, right? Like even not in this case, like oftentimes the thing, actually, with my friend too, before he shares these kind of things with us, and before we know what's going on in his life, there are many times when he does very abrasive things, right? Like the things that he does is just so, like, I don't even know how to describe it. There's sometimes where he's just so rude and he says stuff that's probably not appropriate and like that can offend people too. And it's only when we realize the context in which he's speaking, like, oh, okay, it's because he's thinking about this, that he's saying that, or that he's acting that sort of way. And so for us, without knowing all that stuff, there are times when for us too, it's hard to accept people, especially when all of my friends are talking about stuff like this, and I'm sitting there like wow, it's so it's so heart wrenching, right, to sit there and listen to each person share about things like this too. But as a final note for today, for one of our churches here in America, for the LA church, they are having a passing ceremony for some of their new SS, right, who've been diligently learning. I really want to commend all of the SS teachers in LA for teaching them and for organizing it and really trying to push for the passing ceremony too. But when we think about SS, I sometimes wonder, like, oh, like, do SS really feel what a passing ceremony is? Because I remember I had one, like late elementary school or early middle school, and like I'm very thankful for it. It was a nice moment, but I didn't really understand what it was, and for me that wasn't the most important thing. And so thinking about the SS and thinking about our friends and thinking about ourselves, like tying back to the very beginning about this idea that reflecting is important, I spent some time, making a greeting video for the SS, today, and I was telling them a couple things. And the two biggest things that I was saying was, pretty much I was saying don't be corrupted by the world. That was the big one, because as you go forward, you're gonna experience so many things, and when you see the work of the people around you, and when you get fixated on the people around you and the things that you can see, then there are many times when you won't be able to see the Trinity. And that's such a sad thing, right? But that's such a thing that you feel, right, when you're going through school, right? When you see so many people who are not living their lives with God, and so. Yeah, it's easy to feel like, oh, God is not there, right? When you see that. And I was like, yeah, that's a mistake. That's something that will trip you up. So don't focus on those things, because honestly, when you look at people, you might not see God. With some people you will, but with a lot of people you won't. And so it's not to people whom we should be looking. And this is something that I've been thinking about throughout this last year. But it's when we love people, like when we love people on behalf of God and on behalf of the Trinity, that we feel God's heart, right? That we feel God's heart for each and every one of us, right? So I was really telling the SS that because I think when you start to become disillusioned with people and with the things happening around you, with the many great things and great and terrible things happening around you, you start to forget about the people around you. Right? And you start not thinking about them, and you start not caring for them in any sort of effectual way, right? In any way where you actually make a difference, right? It's a case in point, like with my friend too, right? I said he has sometimes a very abrasive character. It's not that he's meaning to, but because he's so fixated on his situation, he doesn't see what he's doing to the people around him too. And so, yeah, even though he's going through his family's divorce and things like that too, he does also have a girlfriend who he's living with, and I can see at times he doesn't necessarily treat her in the best way too. So in some ways, it feels like he's just repeating the same mistakes of his parents, and that is a very common trend that we see everywhere, right? And not just to his girlfriend, but to his friends too. There's times where, even though it's supposed to be well-meaning and it's supposed to be in kind of like a comedic way, he says things that, will ultimately hurt his friends too. And he doesn't realize that is actually something that damages him, right? That when we really think about that, distances us from God, right? That's such a huge thing. And so for each person here too, as you go forward, I think that's the point of reflection that would be beneficial, not just for the SS, but for myself and everyone too. So all throughout the week and all throughout everything that we do, really as the Lord's body, I think it's so important to love people, right? To love our brothers and sisters and care for them and pray for them and be there for them in a very effective way, in a way where we bring God into their lives, in a way where we act as a bridge between, our brothers and sisters and to the Trinity. And so with that, we'll conclude episode 50 of 2G Talks. I hope to see you guys all very soon in next week's episode.
And thank you so much, Eddie, for another wonderful episode of 2G Talks. And wow, 50th episode, guys. Wow, that's a big milestone, which means he's only 2 episodes away from doing it for 1 entire year. So super grateful and thankful for Eddie and all the other people doing these great segments. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any comments, leave them below. But this also means we're at the end of today's podcast. Everyone, have an amazing and awesome day. And we'll see you guys tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm